The hungriest man in the room is not the one who devours. It's the one who resists, the one who sees the banquet laid before him and chooses stillness, the one who understands that desire, unchecked, is not power, it is slavery dressed in silk. You think control is about force. You think strength is about domination. But the man who can sit in the fire of longing, who can feel the ache of wanting and not reach for the nearest escape, that man is a ruler, not of others, but of himself. And that is the foundation of every empire that lasts. Desire is not evil. Desire is raw material. It is the molten core of every great creation. But molten lava doesn't build cities. Only a mind cool enough to shape it can. And the tragedy of modern man is this. He confuses indulgence with freedom. He thinks because he can, he should. He calls instant gratification self-love and discipline trauma. But what he does not see is that the constant pursuit of pleasure, of dopamine, of validation, of attention, that is the leash. And he's holding the other end. There is a deeper hunger that builds legacies. It's not the hunger to consume. It's the hunger to craft, to endure the fast in order to earn the feast. To walk alone in the desert of restraint because you know the palace is not built in pleasure. It is built in pain. A mind that controls desire sees the world as it is. A sea of traps wrapped in comfort, 1,000 choices that all whisper, just once won't hurt. But just once becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. And before you know it, the architect becomes the addict. The lion becomes the lamb. The master becomes the servant of his own cravings. Your potential is not hiding in your vision board. It's hiding in your self-denial, in your restraint. The empire you dream of is built brick by brick in moments. No one sees. When you say no to what you want now, so you can say yes to what you want most. Let's talk about the psyche, the internal battlefield between ego and shadow. Jung called it individuation. The sacred process of integrating the wild, unconscious parts of yourself with your conscious values. And at the core of that integration is the taming of desire. You must face it, not run from it, not suppress it, but hold it in your hand like fire and not burn. The man who builds empires does not eliminate temptation. He transcends it. He studies it. He watches it arrive like a tide. But he does not drown because he is anchored, not in willpower, but in clarity. And clarity only comes when you're no longer seduced by every option, because too many options create chaos. And chaos is the kingdom of the unconscious. You don't build from chaos. You build from order, from choosing the few things worth everything and burning the rest. You want to know why most people stay average? Because average people are ruled by what they feel. Empires are ruled by what is true. The empire builder doesn't chase every spark of excitement. He builds the furnace and keeps it lit, not with emotion, but with intention, with vision. And this vision, it's not a Pinterest board or a journal entry. It's a covenant, an unbreakable agreement between who you are and who you are becoming. And once you make that vow, everything that doesn't serve, it becomes irrelevant. Clarity is not a mood. It's a weapon. And you sharpen it every time you say, no, that's not part of who I am. No, that doesn't build the life I'm creating. No, that's not the voice of my higher self. That's the echo of my weakness. If your mind is not trained, your desire will devour you. It will disguise itself as love, as ambition, as freedom, but it will hollow you from the inside out. Because no empire can stand on a foundation of impulse. You must become untouchable to temporary temptation. You must become immune to emotional bribery. You must become fluent in silence. The silence that speaks when everyone else is reacting. The silence that whispers wisdom in the middle of chaos. This is what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. Your desires, unexamined, are your unconscious masters. But your mind, disciplined, is your liberation. You are not your cravings. You are not your emotions. You are not your appetites. You are the one who observes them. You are the one who decides. And that decision over and over again is how empires rise. Not with noise, not with announcements, but with consistent, disciplined, invisible choices. You want success? Start by controlling your mornings. You want power? Start by mastering your impulses. You want respect? Start by respecting the path you said you were committed to. Because no one believes in the man who breaks his own word, not even himself. And if you don't believe in yourself, why would the world? Build a mind that sits with discomfort and does not flinch. Build the mind that sees through the illusion of pleasure. Build the mind that craves growth more than applause. Because that mind, that quiet, unshakable, ruthless mind, can build anything, even an empire. And the truth is, you don't need more motivation. You need to decide. Decide who you are. Decide what matters. Decide what you will never compromise again. Then cut the cord to everything else. That's when the real power begins. That's when the real clarity forms. That's when you walk not with arrogance, but with certainty, because you know desire does not own you anymore. You do. And that is the mind that builds empires. And from that moment forward, everything begins to shift. Not outside, not yet, but within. Because the mind that no longer seeks escape is the mind that becomes inescapable. Let's go deeper. Why do most people never build what they dream of? Not because they lack vision, but because they drown in indulgence. They pray for transformation while feeding their distractions. They say they want greatness, but they keep worshiping comfort. Do you understand what that does to your spirit? It tears you in two. It turns you into a divided self. And nothing fractured ever reaches completion. Desire is not the enemy. But the lack of direction is because direction transforms desire into fuel. But without it, you're just lighting match after match until you're surrounded by fire, but no heat, no purpose, no legacy. Carl Jung taught that man's true task is to confront his inner world, to make peace with the chaos that lives in him, to integrate the wild and the wise. And only when that war is resolved internally can peace be built externally. So if your life feels out of control, it's not the world that needs fixing. It's the ruler within. Because you cannot lead a kingdom if you cannot first lead your thoughts, your urges, your patterns. You think desire is strength? It's not. Your strength is the stillness underneath it. The part of you that says, I want this, but I want something greater more. That something greater is your empire. And most people never reach it because they traded it for dopamine, for the thrill of now, for the moment that passes before meaning ever gets the chance to be born. Do you think the empires of history were built by men who did what they felt like doing? No. They were built by minds disciplined by clarity, fortified by solitude, driven by purpose, so deep it made sacrifice feel like breathing. The man who controls desire isn't missing out. He is building. He's not starving, he's fasting. He's not avoiding life, he's refining it. He doesn't need to chase because he knows he attracts everything aligned with the frequency he chooses to become. And here's the hard truth most people won't tell you. To master your mind, you have to disappoint the version of you that wants everything easy. You have to bury the child who throws tantrums for comfort. You have to outgrow the personality that was built to please. Why? Because empires are not built by people who want to be liked. They're built by people who are willing to be feared, witnessed, and misunderstood, if it means staying loyal to truth. Every time you betray your discipline, you tell your subconscious that your comfort is more important than your calling. And your subconscious obeys. It obeys the repeated signal, not the spoken goal. That is why most people die with their potential still in them, because they trained themselves to surrender to the impulse, to the sugar, the screen, the scroll, the silence. You want to be free? Then train differently. Not harder, not longer, just honestly, with radical attention, with ruthless awareness, with the courage to say, I no longer serve what weakens me. Let's talk about belief. Because without belief, discipline becomes punishment. But when you believe in your future, restraint becomes love. When you believe in your worth, boundaries become sacred. And when you believe that the empire you're building is real, then every distraction becomes an insult. So ask yourself, are you living like your empire is real? Are you waking up like someone who is building something eternal? Or are you still letting small temptations rob you of something priceless? Most people don't fail because they don't try hard enough. They fail because they don't respect what they're building. They treat their dreams like hobbies, their time like a donation box, their mind like a dumping ground. But you have a different calling. You wouldn't be hearing this if your soul wasn't demanding more. You wouldn't be feeling this fire if there wasn't something ancient inside of you, ready to rise, something royal, something fierce, something done being tamed by convenience. And that rising, that becoming, will not come through ease. It will come through sacrifice. Not just once, but every single time the old self claws its way back in. Because the old self will beg. It will bargain. It will remind you of every pleasure you've ever known. It will seduce you with memories of simpler times. It will whisper, just this once, just tonight, just until it gets easier. And if you listen, you reset, you relive, you rewind. But if you stand still, if you breathe into the fire, if you stay anchored in your vow, you evolve. And that's how you build the mind that controls desire. You stop making decisions from emotion and start making them from identity. You stop asking, do I feel like it? And start saying, this is who I am. Because emotion is unstable. But identity, once chosen, is indestructible. And your identity must not be reactive. It must be architected, chosen on purpose, carved by fire, tested in silence, and proven in action. You must become the kind of person who doesn't need motivation. Because motivation fades. You need alignment. You need devotion. You need to become the embodiment of your highest vision. Not just on the good days, but on the days where every cell in your body wants to quit. And that's where most people fall. But that's where you rise. because you were not built to collapse under craving. You were built to command it. You were not built to beg for permission from your impulses. You were built to overrule them. Every craving that comes, whether it's for food, validation, laziness, lust, applause, every single one is a test. A whisper from your lower nature asking, "Are you still mine?" And you must answer not with words, but with refusal, with sacred silence, with a kind of unwavering presence that says, "I am no longer yours. I belong to the empire I build." There's a moment always when the pull of desire feels stronger than your plan, stronger than your promise, stronger than your highest self. That moment is not your enemy. That moment is initiation. It's the threshold you must cross over and over again, not to prove something to the world, but to prove to yourself that the throne in your mind is not vacant, that someone is home, that someone is watching, that you are no longer the passenger. You are the driver. And this is where the psyche becomes steel. When your decisions begin to reflect your destiny, not your mood. When your daily actions start aligning with a future so vivid, so rich in depth, so full of mastery, that compromise becomes disgusting. You cannot fake this. You cannot affirm your way to it. You have to earn it in sweat, in silence, in choices no one claps for. That is where power is forged. In the dark, not the spotlight. In the tension between what you want now and what you will never give up on. People talk about manifestation as if it's magic. But the truth is, manifestation is marriage. You are marrying a version of you that doesn't exist yet. And every time you resist the seduction of distraction, you honor that union. Every time you stay on the path when it's boring, when it's quiet, when no one is cheering, you prove that you are worthy of what you say you want. Because what you want already exists. But it exists at a higher frequency. And you don't get there by wishing. You get there by matching it. By killing off the version of you that lives on crumbs. By resurrecting the version of you that lives by code. Let's talk about code. Not law. Not rules. Not trends. But internal law. A personal constitution that cannot be corrupted. A set of non-negotiables, not for the sake of being disciplined, but for the sake of being unshakable. The man who has a code does not need a crowd. The man who has a code does not get seduced by shortcuts. He knows that shortcuts cut character. And without character, everything collapses eventually. Empires built on emotion fall. Empires built on charisma fade. Empires built on manipulation rot. But empires built on clarity, restraint, and inner authority, they endure. Because the foundation is not image. It is essence. And what is essence? Essence is who you are when everything is stripped away. No applause. No followers. No money. No stage. Just you. Your choices. Your thoughts. Your silence. That silence. Most people run from it. They fill it with noise. They numb it with screens. Because in that silence, they hear the truth. They feel the shame. They meet the parts of themselves they've tried to bury. But you do not run. You listen. You confront. You integrate. This is the Jungian path. The path of the whole man. Not the perfect man, but the conscious one. The one who sees the darkness in himself and makes peace with it so he doesn't project it onto the world. That is mastery, not control over others. Control over self, not escape from the world. engagement with Ita as a sovereign soul. And that sovereignty, it starts where your excuses end, where your story no longer dictates your choices, where your trauma is no longer your compass, where your wounds are no longer your identity, because you have chosen a higher path, not the easier path, a truer one, the one where every step forward is earned, but every inch gained is yours forever. People ask, how do I become powerful? You start by becoming accountable to your mind, to your decisions, to your desires, and then you transcend them, not because you're above them, but because you're no longer enslaved by them. You own your appetites. You witness them, but you do not obey. Because every time you say no to what you don't need, you say yes to the future that's calling you. And that future, it's not a fantasy. It's a mirror. It's reflecting who you must become to receive it. And if you can master your mind, if you can govern your impulses, if you can lead yourself through the fire without flinching, then there is nothing this world can deny you. Because the mind that controls desire is the mind that controls reality. And it is reality that bends for the disciplined, not the loud, not the dramatic, not the ones who chase, but the ones who hold. Hold the line when it's thankless. Hold the code when it's inconvenient. Hold the vision when it looks like nothing is happening. That holding, that invisible endurance, is the birthplace of power no one can take from you. Desire wants you to react. Discipline commands you to respond. And response is rooted in awareness. Awareness of your patterns. Awareness of your sabotages. Awareness of every time you make a choice that contradicts who you said you were becoming. And in those small, unspoken contradictions, your empire quietly crumbles. But here's what no one tells you. You can rebuild. You can choose again. Not by waiting for the perfect time, but by recognizing that the moment you return to your center, your throne is still there. It never left. You did. The mind that builds empires is not perfect. It is persistent. It is not obsessed with motivation. It is married to mission. And that mission is sacred, because you are not just building a business, a brand, a body, or a bank account. You are building a being, a soul strong enough to carry legacy, a psyche deep enough to handle truth, a presence so grounded it rattles illusion when it walks into the room. Do you understand what kind of responsibility that is? To be the one who does not flinch when others panic. To be the one who doesn't self-destruct when things don't go as planned. To be the one who can feel everything and still choose what's aligned, not what's easy. That's leadership. That's empire energy. And it starts with this inner command. I will not be ruled by what is temporary. Temporary emotions, temporary pleasure, temporary approval. All of them can seduce you into permanent regret. But you will not be seduced, because you've already chosen something higher. And it's not just clarity you need. It's loyalty to that clarity. Anyone can have a moment of inspiration, but very few are loyal to it when the mood disappears. Very few treat inspiration like a covenant, but that's what it is. The vision you saw in your spirit, it requires you to shed the skin of who you were. And every desire that tries to keep you comfortable, it's just an echo of the old self begging not to die. But let it die. Let it mourn. Let it scream. And then let it burn. Because you are birthing something rare, something real. And it cannot coexist with the part of you that clings to comfort like a security blanket. You don't need comfort. You need conviction. The kind of conviction that says, I don't chase feelings, I create reality. I don't need proof, I walk in faith. I don't negotiate with weakness, I convert it into wisdom. Let me ask you something. Have you ever really seen what you're capable of when you're clear? When you're not intoxicated by the world's noise? When you're not shackled by shame? When your actions align so deeply with your values that you feel like a weapon forged by truth? If you've never met that version of yourself, then let today be a funeral for who you were, for the small you, for the reactive you, for the emotionally fragile you, and let it be a coronation for the self you're about to summon. The king, the queen, the sovereign, the architect, the one who no longer dances with desire, but commands it to serve the vision. This is the beginning of a different kind of empire, one not built on image, but impact, one not sustained by hype, but discipline, one that doesn't need to prove anything, because it is. Let others chase followers. You build foundation, let others sell illusion. You become truth, let others crave fame. You craft legacy, and legacy is not what they remember you for. It's what remains when you're no longer here. It's the code passed down in whispers, the standard felt without words, the discipline that becomes generational DNA. And that legacy, it doesn't start with a crowd. It starts in the dark. It starts in the moment where your hands are shaking and your doubts are loud and your desire says, give up. But your soul says, keep going. Because the soul knows the empire is already yours. But it's waiting to see, can you lead yourself through the silence? Can you govern yourself in the chaos? Can you walk through fire and still speak with peace? The empire doesn't arrive when the world believes in you. It arrives when you believe in you. When the ruler within is awake, when the crown is claimed, not by ego, but by inner authority. And that crown belongs to the one who can master desire. Not suppress it, not fear it, but transform it, harness it, transmute it into action. So intentional that even time bows in reverence. This is your reminder. You don't need to wait. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need permission. You need to decide right now, right here. Burn the lesser part. Bury the weaker voice. Rebuild from soul. Walk like it's already done. Lead like it's already real. And remember, the mind that controls desire doesn't just build wealth. It builds worlds, because you were never here to live a small life. You were not sent into this world to be ruled by impulses, to be puppeteered by algorithmic addictions, to be hypnotized by the illusion of more. You were sent here to create, to remember, to dominate the internal first, so that the external becomes a reflection of your inner empire. And domination does not begin with force. It begins with clarity, with knowing what is yours to pursue and what is beneath your pursuit. Too many are chasing goals they never questioned, desires they inherited, not discovered, ambitions planted in them by systems, screens, and scarcity. But your mind, your sovereign mind, must be trained to ask, is this truly mine? Does this craving serve my higher order? Or is it feeding the version of me I'm trying to outgrow? Because the most dangerous man is the one who knows which desires are distractions. He's not immune to temptation. He's intimate with it. He sees it clearly and still walks away. That's what makes him powerful. Not the absence of desire, but the ability to transcend it. The world will try to bait you with applause, with sex, with comfort, with shortcuts, with a false promise of overnight significance. But what you must remember is this: anything gained without becoming the person who can hold it will destroy you. You want power? Build the vessel. You want wealth? Build the character. You want peace? Burn the version of you that negotiates with chaos. You are not here to gather attention. You are here to channel intention. And when intention becomes lifestyle, you walk in a different frequency. People feel it, not because you shout, but because you no longer flinch. You become the one they consult in storms, the one they watch when everything falls apart, the one whose life is not built on marketing, but on meaning. But you must choose to leave behind the small mind, the loud hunger, the soft betrayal of your own word. That means no longer seeking dopamine, no longer negotiating with mediocrity, no longer choosing quick over correct. Build the mind that can sit in stillness while the world screams and not lose its signal. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to post it. You don't need permission for it. Because when you've truly mastered desire, you don't talk about it. You embody it. Your presence says it for you. And that's what real power looks like. Not in noise, but in unchangeability. A frequency too stable to be seduced. A rhythm too anchored to be rushed. A gaze too clear to be manipulated. But it is not born from reading quotes. It is born in war, a war within, between the part of you that wants ease and the part of you that wants excellence. And every time you choose excellence over ease, you cast a vote for the ruler inside, the one who remembers, the one who came here not just to survive, but to reign, not over people, over self, over the internal kingdoms of thought, emotion, and instinct, over the tides of craving that come to distract you from purpose. This is why few build empires, because few ever learn how to sit with themselves, to fast from validation, to starve the ego until only truth remains. But you are not most people. You are not average. You are not looking for another feel-good speech. You are building a throne. And the throne is not earned in public. It is built in private, one decision at a time, one sacrifice at a time, one moment of silence where the world expected noise. Your silence will disturb the shallow. Your discipline will confuse the lazy. Your consistency will expose the ones who only move when it's easy. Let them be confused. Let them call it too much. Let them misunderstand the man who commands his own mind. Because you don't need them. You don't need likes. You don't need credit. You need alignment. You need legacy. You need the kind of internal integrity that doesn't bend for applause or attention or ego. Only then can you look in the mirror and say, I trust you now. I trust the man I see. I trust that I will not betray the life I'm building. Not for a thrill, not for a hit, not for a moment. And when you trust yourself at that level, your energy becomes undeniable. Your presence becomes disruptive. Your decisions become prophetic because you're no longer chasing the crown. You are the crown. And what does a crown represent? Not status, responsibility. To lead, to build, to sacrifice, to hold the line when no one else will, to say yes only when your soul says yes, to say no without apology. You want to be royal? Start acting like your life is sacred. Start treating your mind like it builds temples. Start treating your attention like currency, because it is. Where your focus goes, your future flows. So guard it, master it, direct it, not once, not twice, but until it becomes effortless. That's how the mind that controls desire becomes a force. That's how you build not just wealth, but wisdom, not just influence, but impact, not just success, but sovereignty. And when you become sovereign, everything else bows. Because once you become sovereign, you stop asking for change, and you become it. You no longer knock on the doors of opportunity. You build the house those doors lead to. You don't wait for permission to be great. You live in a way that demands greatness to follow. And here's what they won't tell you. Every desire that tries to pull you from your path is not just an interruption. It's a mirror showing you where you are still a servant, to impulse, to comfort, to your need to be liked, to your hunger for something external, to fill what only you can resolve. But when you stop feeding from the outside, your inner world stops starving. And that's when something sacred happens. You stop leaking energy, because that's what undisciplined desire does. It leaks your power, one distraction at a time, one excuse at a time, one I'll start tomorrow at a time, until you're left wondering why the empire still isn't real, why nothing's sticking, why you feel so tired. But you don't need another nap. You need a reclamation of your attention, of your focus, of your soul, because the soul doesn't grow in noise. It grows in obedience to a deeper rhythm, not the rhythm of trends, but the rhythm of truth. And the truth is this: everything you want is on the other side of who you're afraid to become. Not because you're not capable, but because becoming that version of you requires sacrifice. It requires death, death to addiction, death to entitlement, death to the version of you who thinks that craving is the same as calling. Your calling doesn't feel like desire. It feels like duty. And duty doesn't scream. It whispers. Every morning, every decision, every time you consider shrinking back into a lesser version of you. And the empire only grows when you choose duty over desire. Not sometimes. Every time. Discipline is not suppression. It's selection. It's choosing the one voice in your mind that builds and silencing every voice that seduces. Because seduction has no loyalty. It only wants the present. Your duty is loyal to the future. And the future doesn't belong to the most talented. It belongs to the most trained, to those who have turned focus into a form of warfare, to those who have made sacrifice feel like devotion. Every time you say no to weakness, if you say yes to the future that's watching you, waiting to know if you're ready, because nothing delays destiny like divided energy. You cannot be for the throne and still flirt with the dungeon. You cannot become a ruler while playing the jester in your own court. And what court do I speak of? The court of your mind, the battlefield of thought, where every belief is either a builder or a bomb, where every emotion is either a messenger or a manipulator. And if you are not king of that court, then something else is. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But not you. You face it. You stare into the abyss of your unfulfilled potential. And instead of turning away, you step in. You walk directly into the fire of becoming, because you finally understand the fire isn't there to burn you. It's there to burn off everything you are not. This is why the mind that controls desire becomes the most dangerous mind of all, because it is pure, it is focused. It is no longer tempted by the cheap currency of quick wins. It is building something that will outlive the moment. And when your vision outlives your craving, you win. Every single time, this is the moment you become untouchable. Not because you have no weakness, but because you no longer negotiate with it. You rise because you refuse to fall back asleep. Because you are sick of waiting for someone to rescue you from a life you keep recreating with your own hands. So you choose something new. You choose to master the thing that once mastered you. You choose to use your desire as fuel, not as chains. Because fire, when contained, powers a city. But fire, left wild, burns it down. And your mind is no different. So choose. Choose to master the flame. Choose to command it. Choose to become the one who sees temptation and says, I know exactly what this is, and I'm not interested. That's not weakness. That's not repression. That is power. That is a nervous system no longer hijacked by chaos. That is a man, a woman, a warrior who has arrived. You've waited long enough. You've talked long enough. You've desired long enough. Now, decide. Now, build. Now, become. The throne is ready. The fire is yours. And the empire is waiting for its ruler. Become the mind that no longer serves desire, but commands it. And the world will have no choice but to reflect back the kingdom. You finally remembered you were born to lead.